So the panel discussion is on mobile banking, emerging threats, vulnerabilities, and countermeasures. What are the threats? What are the vulnerabilities? And what are the countermeasures for the security threats in mobile banking? So I request all the panelists to join us on stage. I'll start with the moderator, Mr. Mukesh Malik, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Aditya Birla Financial Services Group. Sir, I request you to please join us on stage. A round of applause for Mr. Malik, please, the CEO of Aditya Birla Financial Services. I also invite Mr. Prashant Maldikar, who is the Head of IT Security, Information Technology in IndusInd Bank. A round of applause for our official from IndusInd Bank. Mr. Biju K, Chief Information and Security Officer from Federal Bank Limited. Federal Bank Speaker, Mr. Biju K, Kerala-based bank, very growing popular in across the country. And Mr. Solkar Nagaraj Pandurang, Chief Information Security Officer of Reliance Nippon Life Insurance Company Limited. A round of applause for Mr. Solkar, please. Mr. Suresh A. Shan, Head of Innovation and Future Technology, Mahindra & Mahindra Financial Services. A round of applause for Mr. Shan. And last but not the least, also for the technology presentation, Mr. Saurav Sinha, Pre-Sales Manager of BMC Software India. Mr. Saurav. Round of applause for him. So I'll request now Mr. Saurav Sinha of BMC Software India for a technology presentation, and then I'll request Mr. Malik to take over the session and moderate it, please. Thank you very much. Welcome, Mr. Sinha. Round of applause for him. Now I request the moderator to take over the session, and I request you to, sir, please wrap it up within 40 minutes. And over to you, Mr. Malik. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome you all to the session on mobile banking. Can you hear me? Okay. So I'll give a very strange example of, for growth of an economy of every country, two very key enablers people have seen over a long period of time. One is transportation, other one is communication. So if you enhance these two enablers in each country, you will find a lot of growth happening. We saw significant growth in American economy in 1950s plus, because that's a time when US economy focused on developing freeways, advanced version of our highways, and that's how the whole growth started in a very exponential way in that economy. I think the same thing happened to India about 15 years back or so, when mobile phones, the adoption started picking up, and no one could visualize that time that one could see 1 billion subscriptions on mobiles and mobile devices in India by now. With 64% penetration of smartphones. Now, somehow find this number difficult to digest, but because I don't see so many people in tier 2, 3, and 4 towns and villages having smartphones, but I trust that number and hope so that this number will go up even further over the next few years. So, and this number was just about 6.4% in 2009. So imagine a country adopting from 6.4 to 64%, 10 times in 7 years. So India is on the right path. Somehow, India has never seen adoption of any technology except mobile phones. That's a good sign for India. And mobile phones have become such integral part of our day-to-day lives that we can't live without them. If you do a survey today on best companion survey in India, you may find that phone is the best companion for most, and not even your life partner in many situations. So it's that integral in our lives right now. So what's driving up this growth in India in the mobile space, besides having the technology enablement? That's what we will speak about in the next 35 minutes. What's driving up is that customer expectations have gone up significantly. Customers have tasted blood, that it's no longer important to plan time to go to a bank physical premises. I would say even other financial services companies, don't expect customers to walk into their branch always. That's one key change. Customers want everything, everywhere. So that's the matter of convenience which customers are looking at. The other parameter which is driving this growth is, of course, cost advantage. Now, I'm not sure how in this country right now cost is playing out of digital channels, but the faith is clear that in the medium to long run, cost per transaction will fall so dramatically that digital channels will pay off much, much more than any of the past channels that we have seen, be it the call centers or, of course, the physical channels or branches will, over a period of time, will become insignificant. While physical branches will never disappear, but we may not be really far away from the age of seeing advent of digital banks which will have only digital channels and not physical infrastructure. So that's what we are actually right now moving towards. So in my view, there's an issue on cost per transaction in the country still on electronic transactions. So while I'm a big supporter of mobile banking, mobile devices, but the ticket size in India per transaction turns out to be very small as compared to Western markets. While our cost of technology may just be about 1/4 of the US and other Western world countries, but our transaction size tends to be 1/25 to 1/30. That's, I think, is a challenge in India. And let's see with the with the launch of various payment banks in the country, let's see how well they innovate their operating models to become profitable in a sustained way over a longer period of time. Let's see that. Now, also, this growth is, of course, bringing alongside a lot of risk, both for the customers as well for the banks. And that's what the discussion is all about today. We all hear about hacking threats coming up. It's far more promoted. If anything wrong happens, the way communication travels in India today on WhatsApp and other social messaging networks, everyone becomes aware of anything going wrong. That's a big threat to this industry. So far, I'm not aware of any big hack which has happened into mobile networks of banks so far. We haven't heard a big scam happening around that so far. But we all have to be prepared. We all have to be prepared for the best of technology solutions to safeguard our customers, their money that they invest, the trust they have in the banking system. And that's what we are all here for discussing, that how do we protect customers' confidence in mobile channels so that we can see much more adoption and make the country really digital as we go into the future and take the economy on rapid growth path. So let me start with Prashant. You work for a very successful bank and you have a very capable mobile offering. How do you see banks' understanding of threats in mobile banking these days? And what are you doing from technology standpoint to overcome those threats and vulnerabilities?
Thanks, Mukesh. So as you rightly said in your introduction, the mobile penetration is very high in India as well as globally. And it is becoming a very key instrument or medium of transactions in a digital world, or rather in a new era of going towards cashless economy in India. So from the bank's perspective, if I have to also say or agree with you, we have not seen a large frauds as such from the digital banking or other mobile banking perspective. But having said that, we have to be prepared. And how do we relate is actually is to with the mobiles or instruments which we use. Everybody in today's world at least having two instruments in hand, either a mobile phone or maybe iPad or maybe a tab. So I just like to give some perspective in terms of what is happening on mobile. So if you look at that, the Android is absolutely vulnerable device. Even new threats are being identified on the iPhones as well. So in those eras, and it is no more an era of like a simple virus or traditional virus. It is always an era of advanced malwares and all sorts of APTs and whole world. So it is basically a targeted attack. So even if you talk about somebody's trying to gift you an iPhone, which it may be a device with lot of software in it, which can actually record your voice transactions, everything, and it can take all of your data. So primarily, we try to concentrate on these mediums and how do we protect them, and how the transaction comes to the bank, starting from the mobile app to the backend servers and all. So let me give you another perspective as well. So having said that, the devices are very vulnerable. If you look at the mitigations on the device, at this moment it is very poor. So even on the PCs and all, the world is still maturing in terms of APTs and sandboxing. New ways of handling the threats are coming up in terms of mathematical models or machine learning models and all. But those going to the mobile devices is still it's evolving space. And in terms of mindset of people, from the Indian perspective, we generally, or rather I would say, many people may not be having the even normal antivirus running on the device. Not in the metros I'm talking about, maybe outside the metros. And as in mindset, generally even free antivirus and all, I don't know how far they are good enough to take care. And as an Indian mentally, we try to go for a free stuff. We really don't like to buy anything which is actually, kind of taking care of MTM or mobile threats management per se. So looking at this side, so as a bank or rather, though we compete in terms of business with other banks, other peer banks, we collaborate in terms of security with other banks. So the threat begins from the instrument, source of the instrument itself. So what we do essentially is the secure by design. So the mobile app itself has to be coded in secure way. Then its backend also has to be properly configured, properly implemented. The entire mobile apps, whether it is on iPhone, whether it is Android or Windows Mobile, it has to undergo through proper penetration testings, as well as on the other hand, backend side, as well as you can take care of a lot of basic things first, and then probably move on to advanced stuff, like ensure that all the machines, servers are hardened properly, right from the OS, databases, web servers. They're patched properly with the zero vulnerabilities and all, so on and so forth. So, and then other things are evolving. So in terms of vulnerabilities are keep evolving, in terms of the mitigations are keep evolving. So accordingly, we are.
Thanks, Prashant. I actually carry an Apple phone, and I thought my phone is the safest because I believe Android phones are vulnerable, not iPhones. But you have added one more dimension to me. The constant debate between myself and my nephew, who says that move to Android phones, much better features on some other phones. But I said no, I will not move out of iPhone. You're telling me iPhones are also vulnerable to an extent. Also, I want to add to this that so let me move to Biju, and that the next point is in that context. So this is from the bank side, he covered. What about the customer side? So how safe do customers feel in the current era using mobile phones for doing financial transactions? And what can the banking industry, the regulators like RBI and insurance regulators and SEBI, etc., what can they do to give more confidence to customers to do financial transactions on mobile devices? I'll give you one context here that we see all our SMS messages coming into mobile. We don't know how vulnerable those networks are which deliver SMS messages. SMS messages are talking about all the bank balances we hold, salaries we earn, various payments which are coming into our bank accounts. So actually you can create a full profile of a customer of anybody if you want to hack into the phone. If you're able to hack into the SMS network, imagine the threat to many customers. When I use the mobile phone, I use it extensively for financial transactions. But I keep thinking whether somebody is taking my passwords away or not. These are very valid fears in minds of customers. So what do you think, how do customers feel, and what can we do more as an industry to safeguard our customers?
Good evening. Yeah, that's a very relevant question. So, hello. Yeah. From the customer perspective, the primary thing which they are looking into is the convenience part. Whereas from the banking perspective, what we are trying to is to ensure security and thereby prevent fraud. So we have to strike a balance between that. That is the core thing. And again, when we look at the customers, there will be mainly three category of customers. So one who will be a very secure conscious, who are aware of the environment, aware of the threats and other issues related to mobile and other. Then the other side, there will be customers who doesn't bother about these things, and there are other category of customers who are reasonably aware. So from the customer perspective, we have to ensure convenience and so that they use it. So, and the bank has to give them the confidence that the application which each bank is providing is secure, reasonably foolproof, and these are the things which customers have to keep in mind while using the application, so that there won't be any fraudulent transactions happening or there won't be any untoward incidents. So these are the key things which which have to be essentially taken care. Then having a very user-friendly UA is also a very important aspect, so that the customers who once tries to use it gets quickly familiarized to that and comes back for using it thereafter. So having said that, all the responsibility comes back to the bank side to ensure that the transactions are secure, customers' money is not lost. The regulator has put in ample rules and regulations which put the onus on the banks to ensure the security of the transactions. So what the bank has to do is that while giving the convenience part to the customers, we have to ensure a very safe and secure environment for the entire scenario. So we won't be able to put much restrictions on the customer side, because essentially the secure convenience part will get affected. So normally what we can do is conduct proper risk assessment, identify the vulnerable areas and put in place controls so that the transactions do happen in a secure environment. We have to ensure various kinds of security measures, like malware is one of the major thing. So there are two ways. One, customer awareness to a certain extent will help ensuring that there are antiviruses installed in the customer's mobile. They are having a reasonable level of OS. But again, there will be certain category of customers who doesn't bother to ensure all those things. So that puts the onus on the bank side also to ensure that malwares do not exist in the customer's space. There are solutions available now, which certainly there is a cost, but it in a way provides comfort to the bank as well as to the customers. So it to a reasonable level it protects the end user device and ensures safe transaction. Then there are other controls which can be done at the bank side, like putting certain velocity checks, transaction limits, reasonable fraud monitoring, using fraud analytics. Those kind of compensating controls can be put at the bank side so that the damages are kept to the minimum level. There are no fraudulent transactions, those kind of things are there. And awareness is also very important factor on an ongoing basis, not only on an initial level. It has to be done on an ongoing basis, because the environment, the threat landscape changes on a day-to-day basis. Something which we have not thought today may come tomorrow. So that is also very much required, a continuous awareness creation among the customers as well as the employees of the bank to transfer the confidence to the customers when they interact with the employees. So this kind of ensuring adequate compensating controls in place while providing convenience to the customer side, we have to strike a balance. So that's the thing.
Yeah, very well explained. Thanks. A couple of more points come to my mind. I have seen, as a banker, I have seen number of our employees using movie names. Let's say, Kabali 2016 is a common word, common password used in South by number of employees who patronize, Rajnikant movies. There will be many more examples like that. I can bet if you know the email IDs of various individuals, you'll be able to crack their e-commerce sites' passwords. They're very simple passwords normally. Jabong will normally have Jabong 2016 or Jabong 3, Jabong 7 and so on. Similarly, so we did a study some time back for our customers, and we were quite taken aback. So I think these sites and banking sites, they have to implement very strong password logic, and they should not allow easy passwords to go through. In addition to, you spoke very rightly about the velocity check. If you find a customer normally logs in from Mumbai or Hyderabad or specific location, and you suddenly find the customer has logged in from some other location, internationally or within India also from a very different location, do something about it quickly. Call up the customer or block the transaction, and then you do something about it. So there are a number of ways of doing it. So Viju, you covered quite a few things quite well, so thanks for that. Let me move on to Nagaraj for you. You work for an insurance company, and while you're not a bank, and therefore you need a sponsor bank to help you process all the payment facing in your business.
Thank you, Mukesh. So being a life insurance company, a core insurance company, we directly do not have that financial risk. We don't entertain the transaction with our application. However, we do a tie-up with bank applications as well as the payment applications for collecting the payment. So does it mean that we end that risk over there? No, actually. See this, to give you an example, like as you said, that Apple phone, it's not so safe. Could be safe compared to the Android, but I remember that in 2010-11, the Apple application used to allow for download of application by paying money, right? So the validation check what they had, you can use your virtual credit card number to fill in and take it, and your credit limit doesn't need to be the limit which required to pay. You can have even 100 rupees or 1 rupee, and once you feed all your credit card number, it does the authentication, and it starts downloading whatever the application. So this was the vulnerability which I remember that we found in 2010-11. Now it is fixed. So the threats what we see is not that we transfer the risk to the wherever the third-party payment gateways or to the banks. So it doesn't end here. So the weakness has to be checked at our end as well. So the responsibility, the accountability lies with even the client or with the partners who are working with us, and we do the due diligence of the arrangement what we make with. And the second risk what I see is, or the threat which I see is the outsourcing. So many organizations we do outsourcing of this development of these apps. So this is always giving you a loophole for a code, a malware being left in that coding. So a disgruntled employee, once he creates something and go away. So this may create a future risk. So what I feel is the due diligence at launching stage and the regular review of the security controls is most important.
Thanks, Nagaraj. Moving on to Saurav, you spoke about some products of your company, but let me ask you overall at the, so let's say, how do you see the payment platforms evolving in the next 5 years in India? And what can we do to help banks as well as the customers adopt this technology and this whole platform of digitalization more going forward?
So there are multiple things which customers as well as banks, with the help of RBI, would have to take care of. Something which is important here is the service charge around how much are banks going to charge their customers, because at one side we have RBI and the government talking about go cashless, use e-wallets, use online methods, use different payment platforms for your transactions, but how much are you going to charge for the same? Recently I saw an advertisement from MobiVic, which was on Times of India, which said you pay 50 rupees and you get back 50 rupees. So these kind of incentives would certainly allow and facilitate adoption, and this is something which banks and other digital platform transaction providers would have to think around. At the same time, there has to be a second thought process around how banks would evolve to help or to facilitate these third-party payment platforms, right? how will you tie up with NPCI? How will you take care as to all payments which have been made through my mobile phone has actually been remitted to the party which I have transferred money. Recently what happened was one of my friends was at a restaurant and he made a payment. This happened on Sunday, where he paid through one of the mobile e-wallets, and the money was not transferred. So actually, the restaurant owner said, unless I can see it in my account, I will not let you go. So these kind of situations would have to be taken care of, so that and at the same time, so that customers feel confident while transacting using multiple digital platforms. At the same time, how much service charges you are applying into. The third aspect is certainly around how will you evolve your IT systems and how various software vendors, etc., would help you transform digitally. So that is something which is also going to play a very important role. These are few of the things which will certainly help evolve. And evolution is imminent, right? It is certainly going to happen.
Absolutely.
How the government has mandated things.
Yeah, I'll just add to what you said. In India, we have seen number of platforms emerging over the last 10 to 12 years in the payment space, with the last step being taken by NPCI when UPI methodology and the entire platform has come up. I think in India, going by the level of education which people have in general in the country, and that's also going up not very rapidly. I just feel that there should be a pause taken by our payment networks the way they're evolving, while digital wallets will keep evolving, and Paytm is a good example of that as of now. But at least earlier we had MMID. It worked in a different way. Country adopted that in a big way. 43% of electronic transactions started happening with that platform. NEFT has settled in very well for business transactions and personal transactions as well to an extent. Now UPI is a path-breaking method. I think India is ahead of many Western countries also today in its payment platform growth and evolution. Most countries in the world don't have the kind of platforms we have, where money reaches the other party instantly. RTGS is one example. IMPS is another example. UPI is another path-breaking initiative by the country. I think time to take a pause, just perfect what we have done, and promote these technologies, these methods for adoption across the country for the next at least 5 years to come. If you keep making it different, people can't absorb so many methods over a period of time, actually. Once you get used to a certain method, you tend to use that method and not explore too many variants of that. India has enough technology now in this space. Now we can focus on number of ideas which came up in the discussion with all of the panelists here in terms of securing and helping customers adopt much more. And it's most relevant in the current era in the space of demonetization which has happened. If the digital platform adoption happened much earlier than the demonetization, we would have actually become truly cashless in quick time. So I think that the timing is such now that the next 4 to 5 years, I would say, slow down on new technologies, perfect what we have faith in that, and go for adoption. Let the whole country adopt the same platform before getting to the next level in the next, sometime from now. That's what I thought will be important. Suresh, I want to ask you one thing. So let's see, various banks are at different stages of evolution currently in the mobile banking space. Some of them are heavily invested, highly digital. Some of them are in the middle somewhere, and some banks are not really there. Yeah. How do you see the space evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? And do you see some threat to traditional banks completely because of this disruption which has happened in the industry in the recent past and will continue to happen over the next few years?
Good evening, everyone. It's beyond threat, it's more of opportunities there. And provided how they are prepared for the future in terms of mobility, where it again revolves around availability and affordability and accountability, where mobile revolves more on infra, which I thought like that's a big area still, it's very open. So for infrastructure plays a very significant role in terms of rural India, still a lot more to get improvised in terms of reaching to them. Where if you want to have a secured tunnel, secured information when you want to run mobility, connectivity plays a major role, electricity plays a major role. Last 2 days Chennai is fully on storm, like full Chennai is out of electricity. A metro running out of electricity and people struggling to even use internal equipments which is use of electricity. So such kind of things is going to put more pressure on the volumes of usage. And that pressure is going to be on banks, how they are going to serve them and get into that. Or like we even heard people are moving towards ATMs in the nights. Now they are trying to use it. So some peak hours are now generated due to that demand. And the volumes whichever it's going to support, it's going to be more on infrastructure rather than just like that which we depend on the mobility solutions. Again, culture plays a major role. In rural, again, rightly pointed out, everybody has biased with some particular mode of working style operations, then the culture should get fit into that. Even we found people use phones based on the necessity of information and necessity of things to come out. So we should think about an innovative model where a dongle type which can cater to any kind of phones, which does all the banking like a passbook and uses the mobility only for connectivity will be a safer side rather than just trying to use that existing mobile, which currently as of now it's a big threat. It's not so easy to monitor and bring it out. Those kind of threats are now going to come on the vendors and partners which we are trying to bring it out. But India, one good thing is what, like at least 60% of the people come out with that positive sense in terms of how that particular stakeholders can be leveraged in terms of using the mobile phones towards banking sector, where majority people still feel like a lot more can be utilized if the things are done through a particular security which takes care of the stakeholders internally and ensures like that it's not an outside threat. Even a misuse should not do something wrong so that the mobile set gets into a threat.
Yeah, I like your attitude where I asked you about disruption and threat to the banks, but you converted that into an opportunity. So that's a very good sign. How optimistic we are all about mobile banking and use of devices, such devices in the future is all coming out from here. So can I open the floor to all of you now in the audience for any questions that you may have to any of us? No one?
I can add one point.
Sorry?
I can add one point.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Now Samsung has come out with sensor and authentication through Retina,
Yeah,
which
Iris.
they are trying to deploy it and it's going to come out more familiar. So such things keep coming from the mobility side. But how such things can leverage banking and try to depend on mobility is going to be a challenge. And how similar things works on less bandwidth, again ensure the security, whichever gets to the best is going to deliver the best.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking on the lighter side actually, this biometrics which have come through. I had a demo of the Samsung device recently, and one has to go so close for that iris scan that I would feel uncomfortable being a female customer, suppose somebody coming close to me and looking into my eyes and checking my eyes and taking picture. I don't know how comfortable people would feel, but the point here is that new technologies are evolving. Threats will remain, and I'm sure all of us in the industry and globally, we will find ways to overcome those threats and continue to grow this industry in a significant way that our lives will actually transform, financially speaking at least, with the use of mobile devices. Any other thought? Otherwise, we can close the discussion here. Anyone else? If no one, so this was fabulous discussing this entire topic with you, and thanks for all your contributions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malik, for the wonderful moderation of this session on a very vibrant and a very important topic of mobile banking and emerging threats and vulnerabilities and how to counter these threats. Thank you so much, and I request my colleagues to get mementos on stage, and I request Mr. Malik to please present mementos to our eminent panelists who have wonderfully participated in this discussion on mobile banking and threats, emerging threats to it, and how to counter them. So I'll start with Mr. Prashant Maldikar, Head of IT Security, IndusInd Bank. So if you please present a memento to Mr. Prashant, please. A round of applause for Mr. Prashant. Mr. Biju K. He is the Chief Information Security Officer of Federal Bank Limited. Round of applause for Federal Bank Speaker. Then Mr. Solkar Nagaraj Pandurang, Chief Information Security Officer, Reliance Nippon Life Insurance Company Limited. Mr. Suresh A. Shan, Head of Innovation and Future Technology, Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services. A round of applause for Mr. Shan, please. And Mr. Saurav Sinha, Pre-Sales Manager of BMC Software India, for his wonderful presentation as well as participation in the panel discussion on mobile banking. I also request Mr. Saurav Sinha to present a memento to Mr. Mukesh Malik. Yeah, give and take, but we are very, very thankful, sir, you participated in this session, and we are very sorry to make some noise backstage and but thank you so much, Mr. Mukesh Malik, Chief Operating Officer of Aditya Birla Financial Services Group. Once again, a round of applause for our moderator and our eminent panelists on stage, and a group photo is requested of all the panelists with Mr. Malik, COO of Aditya Birla Financial Services Group, the moderator and eminent panel.